well. So, and your dad was a helicopter pilot.
What?
Um,
Okay.
I I was I was hoping to be fly jets,
Yes,
but
that is a common
but
thing for.
everybody who's a naval aviator, Navy or Marines, you wind up spending at least some time at Pensacola.
Yeah, it is a military town.
And West Florida is very different from everywhere else. It's nice.
It is. It's pretty. We have great beaches.
So, what else do we want to talk about? This is where I probably should have prepared better and have a whole list of questions. Well, actually, you said something I didn't know, which that your brother had been in the Coast Guard.
Uh-huh.
And tell me a little bit about your brother. I mean, he never got to meet his dad. He
Oh,
really only has pictures for
yeah.
memories.
That
Um,
was that was really tough for him growing up. And he we we just oh man, we wanted different things. My he of course he wanted a dad. He wanted a father. And it really bothered him that there were pictures of me and dad and no pictures of him and dad, and there were letters. There were a few letters to me and things like that. But yeah, Ben, it was hard. That part was really hard on Ben. And when he was going through that is when, uh, for most of my, well, for probably at least the first 10 years of my life, I was secretly thankful that I didn't have a dad because men terrified me. And I just, I was, they terrified me. That's all I have to say. I thought they were mean. And anyhow, so my little brother, who desperately wanted a dad, my mom would go in and pray with him at night. And he'd be praying, Lord, please, please send me a daddy and that I can play with and blah, blah, blah. And then I would hear that. So then mom would come in to pray with me and I would be like, please ignore Ben. Please do not send me a dad. Please. So for a long time I teased him. I said, well, who did he listen to? But anyways, yeah, it was hard on Ben. And then, but now I don't know, I respect him more than I respect just about anybody in the world. He's impressive. He just had his second baby.
that's right. You are an aunt again, and
I,
shared that with us via social media.
I did. I share a lot, don't
You do. Well, that's great. And I've told you you're one of my must keep up with
I? Thank you.
over Twitter. You're a lot of fun, and everybody should follow you.
No, I don't know about that.
Oh, come on. Not near enough people hear what you have to say.
I have nothing. All right, I won't do that.
That's not true. You've got a lot to say.
Yes. Mostly it's ridiculous stuff. So if you like ridiculous things, then you should follow me. If not, then maybe mute me.
Well, that there is far too much seriousness at times.
At times there is. I appreciate it though. I mean, I need it. I actually use it I almost quit watching the news and the networks after I'd been on Twitter for a while.
Well, as far as breaking news events goes, yeah, you're going to find out about it via social media.
Yeah.
It's funny. I will see something come up through social media, and I will immediately try to fact check it. And it's amazing how far ahead of the curve social media can be versus news organizations. You'd really think that there'd be they'd be a little more responsive than they typically are these days. But no, it's good to hear you talk about your brother because it's interesting. I think that he didn't go towards the Marine Corps. You'd have a a lot of sons. Again, I'm going to sort of just guess here, but you have a lot of sons who may be searching for their dad who would try to follow in his footsteps.
Yes, I actually think that Ben didn't try. I mean, he was looking at, he felt kind of lost, and he was looking at, and he just needed to get away. He needed to get away from women. I mean, there's me and my mom and my aunt. I mean, he was just surrounded, and he just needed to get away. And he went and he checked them all out, and I remember, I can't remember, I think he was at one point contemplating whether he was going to do the Coast Guard or the Marines. And my poor mom, as proud as she is, she's thinking, oh, Lord, please, no, I can't handle this. Because this was, if I graduated in 99, that was in 2001.
Right, we've been right in
Yep.
9/11 times.
Yep. So, anyhow, he wound up picking the Coast Guard and thrilled my mother. And I don't know, Ben's just, he's impressive. He gets offered jobs wherever he goes. He's a natural leader, and I don't know. I love him.
What did he do in the Coast Guard?
Oh gosh. He's going to kill me. He was in charge of the big giant guns, the computers on them.
Okay.
But then that was also tricky because he went as far as he could go. And so a lot of times he was giving orders and talking to people, guys that were much older than him. Anyhow, Ben's good. And I actually think he said he might be getting back in the reserves. I don't know how that works. Maybe not.
Well, and it's good because a lot of people tend to forget the Coast Guard too. And I think a lot of people don't have a sense of how really tiny the Coast Guard is. And there's some folks that do absolutely amazing things. I mean, you see that anybody who watches some reality TV, if you've ever watched like Deadliest Catch, for example, you see the rescue swimmers and everybody who go out in the absolutely horrible conditions to save people's lives. I guess that's really what people think of the Coast Guard, and stopping drugs.
I was going to say, yeah, he went down. I know that he went. Even when he was stationed in Maine, he went down to, was it Colombia a couple times? But actually the very first place that he went, speaking of he wasn't a rescue swimmer, but he was, he was stationed on St. Paul Island, which is out in the middle of the Bering Sea.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, anybody who knows Deadliest Catch knows St. Paul Island.
Oh, okay. See, I don't watch that stuff. Anyhow, yeah, it was him and, 10 other people. Yeah, it was rough. But
yeah, there was one thing I remember. This might have been a original question set Trivial Pursuit question or something, but it was, what's larger in terms of manpower, the United States Coast Guard or the New York City Police Department? And in terms of manpower, it's the NYPD by a wide margin.
I actually would have expected that. That makes sense to me.
The NYPD has it's 1.5 or 2 times as many people as the United States Coast Guard.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's not even close kind of thing.
Like much larger though. Okay.
So it's like I said, people forget about it. I have a very funny Coast Guard story.
Tell me.
Oh, okay. This is goes back to let's see. This would have been right before I got married. So this would have been back in 1996, 1997.
Okay.
My paternal grandmother passed away, and she had left in her will that she wanted to be cremated, and then she wanted her ashes scattered at sea. My father knew about the cremation part, but his mother had never told him about this being scattered at sea bit. And my grandmother was a very well-traveled woman, did a lot of international vacations in her retirement. And I think my grandmother probably had this majestic view of all of us taking a cruise or something and doing it that way. But my father didn't know, what to do, so he started doing some research, and it turns out that the Coast Guard, as a public service, will take people offshore to do ashes scattering.
I didn't know that.
So he set it up where my uncle came down. My uncle lives in Montreal. He came down to New Jersey. Myself and my wife went out to New Jersey along, and I think this probably happened. Let's see, my grandmother passed away before we were married. We probably did this the following spring, so it would have been the spring of 1997. I'm thinking this happened. And we went to the Coast Guard station at Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and at the appointed time, and they took us out on a 47-foot motor lifeboat, which is one of these completely sealed things that they can go out in a hurricane to save people if they have to. The thing can be completely sealed. It's one of those things that's self-righting. It's as unsinkable as man can make a boat. If the whole thing's sealed, it can roll over and self-right itself. That sort of thing. But the downside of being sealed in this little passenger compartment, because they won't let you, for safety reasons, they won't let you ride outside. And it was a nice day. It was a beautiful sunny day. You think, the waves can't be that bad. Well, you're in this 47-foot boat that's cranking along at a good bit of speed, and it's pitching and rolling and bouncing, and you're in this tiny little compartment, and you can't. There's these, portholes to see out that are probably about 2 inches across, maybe 3. So you have absolutely no frame of reference as to where you are, what's going on, and we were all getting just incredibly seasick.
Oh my gosh.
And did the ashes scattering and everything, and then going back, the Coast Guardsmen could tell we were all kind of like ready to hurl. So they let us run outside for a little bit, and then the officer in charge of the boat said, no, the civilians have got to get back inside because we don't want this to turn into a rescue mission when they fall overboard. So we got back in, and all of us were just, sort of staring at the floor, not looking at each other, not saying anything, doing everything possible to keep our stomach contents down. And we finally got back to the shore, and we're walking onto the pier, and I forget who it was who said it first. It may have been my mother. Just speaking, my dad said, "Why did your mom do this to us?" How could she have done this to us? That we had to go through this absolutely miserable experience. But like I said, she probably had this, very romantic thought of us taking a cruise or something. But
picturesque thing.
Yeah, so that's my funny Coast Guard story. Pass that along to your brother. He'll probably get a good kick out of it.
I will tell him.
So trying to think. I'm looking at the clock here. I'd like to get a little more time.
Oh, really? I thought you had to go.
No, I'm looking. No, I've got time. I've got time. And I'm just trying to think of what would be something relevant. Some of this is going to get edited. Here's something that just sort of occurred to me. I know, growing up there in Pensacola, which is a Navy town.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would have gone to school with a lot of classmates and everything whose moms and dads were service members. And
I don't really remember many.
And I guess that's kind of what I was going to get at, because it was like what I'm sort of asking is, were you part of that crowd, or did you not identify that way anymore because your dad wasn't around?
I didn't really go to school with any, but no, I will say that I did always. That's really interesting. I never thought about that. I did always think of myself as being kind of